Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hello, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So I'm always out and about doing interesting things in this world and living my life, and I meet wonderful people. And Lesley McGurk is a woman that I met over a year ago. She's an internationally known creativity expert and astrologer with more than 30 years experience. And she has touched thousands of clients around the world. She's been a featured speaker in many corporations and conferences, also a presenter at 5-star resorts, including the Golden Door, Rancho La Puerta, Red Mountain Spa, Paul Gauguin Cruise Line, etc., etc. She has worked in corporations from Mitsubishi to Disney to Panasonic, Random House. She's an author of children's books as well as has an adult book. She's featured in places like Glamour, Town and Country. I can go on and on and on. More than anything, Lesley is an expert of how we meet the world today. And welcome, Lesley, for taking time out of a crazy schedule as we're living in an interesting world right now. And joining us here on Her Success Story.
Well, it's always inspiring to talk to you, Ivy, in particular, so I'm thrilled to be here.
So tell us, I touched your background, like it goes on and on and on, and there's so much you've done. Share with me a little bit of where you got started in this journey and where you are today.
Okay, so the most interesting thing about my life, and the number one thing I want your listeners to realize, is that I wanted to be a game warden in Africa. I wanted to be working with animals. And if you just heard my whole bio, it's like there is nothing that I am doing that really happened because I aggressively was looking for it. I have found that in life, sometimes you just have to follow the breadcrumbs. And I went from selling T-shirts out of the back of my car, hand-painted T-shirts, because I didn't want to get a regular job. My parents were pretty disgusted with me, and they said, you had this great education, and what are you doing? You should get a job in advertising. And I just knew in my heart that I needed to be free, and I needed to find my own way, which is what all of us have to do right now. We have to find our own way, and the regular way of doing things no longer is going to be working. Maybe it will work to a degree, but not exactly. So kind of living that way is very scary, but there's actually something hugely wonderful about it. In the Chinese language, the symbol for opportunity is also the symbol for chaos. So they're both connected. Anyway, I went from selling T-shirts out of the back of my car, basically living on the poverty level, and a girlfriend of mine told me to write to Glamour magazine, and again, just a random weird thing that I decided to do, and because of that, I ended up getting featured, and someone from Takashimaya, the Japanese department store, saw my T-shirt designs and called me up and said, we want to make you famous in Japan. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, I'm being flown to Tokyo, and over the next 11 years, I was a famous designer in Japan. And remember, I have zero training in art. I didn't go looking to get into the Japanese market. What happens, I think, in life is that we have to just do the best we can every single day. And as long as we have faith that we're doing something that we love and we take little baby steps, I think then somehow or other things show up. And they're usually like little whispers. Like the friend who told me to write to Glamour magazine, it wasn't like, you must write to Glamour. It was just like, hey, offhanded, why don't you just write to them and see if they'll do a story about you? And if you look at your life, and if people were to write down all the most fantastic things that ever happened to them, most of those fantastic things happened because of a super, super small, tiny decision they made. It's usually not these big decisions like, oh, should I take this job in Austin, Texas, or should I go to LA? Or, these big, big decisions are sometimes not the ones that change our life. It's the tiny, tiny ones. So I then from being a famous designer in Japan, it all ended one day because the economy in Japan didn't do very well. So all of a sudden, I had to start all over again, which is what many of your listeners are feeling like right now. Like, oh my God, I've never had a normal job. Or in my case, the people today may be saying, they don't have a job. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't have a job. So I had to reinvent myself again. This was in my late 30s, and I thought, well, I always wanted to be a writer and an illustrator. I had been writing and illustrating children's books. Those children's books, Ivy, had been rejected over 150 times. Some of them were rejected for over 13 years. So you talk about feeling hopeless and that you don't have any chance of getting to where you want to go, like a lot of people feel right now. I knew in my heart that my work was good, but I just didn't know how I was ever going to make it. Eventually, my books got published in Japanese and then in England and then in the United States, and now I've sold over 2 million books around the world. And I did a TED Talk on the importance of being wrong. And basically what I believe is that the things that you really, really care about the most and that you love more than anything, most people in your world are going to say, well, you can't do that because you can't make a living doing that. Well, my opinion is that the very thing that you love the most, that gets you excited, that gets you up in the morning with a feeling of wanting to do it, that's the thing you need to follow. And always, then you're following your soul's purpose. And then I believe the universe conspires to help you out by having people show up, or like I say, there are usually little whispers that come, and it's not something that we have a ton of control over. And then after doing the children's books, guess what happened? I hit another roadblock in 2008 when the publishing world pretty much crashed. People stopped buying books. That was similar to the virus that we're having now. It's like, oh my God, now I can no longer make a living as an artist and a writer. And I used to go to bed at night and I would literally shake. Like my entire body was shaking. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like 40 years old. I've never had a resume. I've never worked for anybody. I've had all these really strange things happen to me in my life. I've been flying by the seat of my pants as a wild, feral human, not doing anything quote unquote normal. And I got to reinvent myself again. And I realized that there was one thing that I had a huge passion for, which was astrology, because an astrologer basically saved my life when I was 18. My mother sent me to her because she thought I was a lost cause and thought, well, maybe the astrologer will figure out how to help our poor daughter who seems so lost. And the astrologer said that I was incredibly creative, and you're getting a late start, but you got to get busy. So that's what got me started doing the T-shirts and the children's books and everything else that I did.
And it
so
started
I thought, all right.
Brought you back. So it brought you back. So it's okay. So now let's touch base and what created. When my parents didn't think you're right, you had the ability to actually create a living because you weren't the standard job applicant. You created ways to make a living because you are creative. So that at that point you went back to your astrology, and that's, what you're saying is that's that little decision that made an impact.
Well, yeah, I just thought, well, gosh, what do I want to do? I wanted to do something I loved. I loved astrology, but then I remember exactly where it was in my house when I lived in Vero Beach. I was pacing in my house and I thought, I love astrology, but do I want to sit down with a total stranger and look at their life and see all their difficulties and everything else? I thought, no way. I was writing children's books about puppy dogs and kitty cats and happiness, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is way, way too heavy duty for me. I don't think I can handle. I'm way too sensitive for that. And nothing else was showing up, and I know from looking at my astrology chart that my purpose for being on this planet is to be of service to something bigger than me, and I'm just an instrument, a channel for something to come through me, whether it's art or lecturing on creativity, working with corporations, healing people, basically, and then astrology. So what I said, Ivy, I literally put my arms up in the air and I said, all right, I give up. I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing with my life, but if you want me to be an astrologer, I will do it. but you have to bring the people to me. I'm not going to have a business card or a website. If you want me to help people, bring them to me. And within a day, I had 2 people in town call me up and say they decided they wanted me to teach astrology. And from that original class of 10 people, I started doing private lessons, and it grew and grew. And now it's unbelievable. I have clients all over the world. I'm working with doctors. I'm working with a doctor at NYU and a doctor at the Greater Boston Functional Medicine Group, because what I do is not fortune telling. It's a way of looking at humans as if they have a pattern or they're a piece of music, and I just help them figure out the best way to play their piece of music. So I have a ton of experience in getting destroyed and having to rebirth myself over and over again. So that's why I was excited to talk with you today, because I know people are out there listening like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to figure out my path and my way? And anyway, I could talk to you for hours about things I could do to help people, but that's a long answer.
So, in what you're doing today, and then Lesley, I've had the joy of getting to know you over this past year more and more and more. It is so amazing. First of all, I completely agree. It's not the big decisions and those big decisions that we fret so over. Should we, shouldn't we? It's the little decisions that make the long-term impact. And I'll always say, you make a decision and you can make that decision right. You can go and make the next decision and the next decision. But when we stay in indecision, we are completely neutered and stifled, and right. You're doing a disservice to yourself. So I love how you share that. And, we're 2 similar souls in the sense of I've reinvented myself a few different times in this world. And we're at, with the virus and what is going on today, there are people, I'll always say, please don't be, don't go into the ostrich effect. Don't bury your head in the sand and be, and say, woe's me. It's, yes, we're in a shift. We're in an evolution. And I'll always, my strong belief is in every evolution, there is possibility and opportunity. You saw this coming a while ago.
Yes, I was on Coast to Coast Radio in January, and I predicted this. I said something big was coming, and I predicted that it would have something to do with the element of air. We're out of balance. It's like a car. If you have a flat tire and you don't have any air, you're going to be on the side of the road. Right now, our planet is, and our whole species is stuck on the side of the road. This virus is attacking our lungs. It's attacking air travel. Nobody's flying, and we're stuck, and we're feeling claustrophobic, and we can't get out. That's all lack of air. So we, as a species, need to figure out how to get air back into our life, whatever that means to you. And that's the solution for getting through this. A lot of it, we're on the airwaves in order to connect through the internet, through Zooms, through phone calls. This is the new way. We're definitely moving from what I call a horizontal platform to a vertical platform. And the vertical platform has everything to do with the earth and the planet and the soil and the animals, and also with what's above our head, the stars, the skies. We have to be reconnected to the ancient things that used to work, like astrology, things following history, understanding that we cannot continue to survive if we don't deal with animal life and even soil. People don't realize that our food, that the dirt is getting ruined. It doesn't have the minerals and the nutrients that it used to, that we have to take care of all of these things or we're all going to be sick. And there are so many epidemics right now of Lyme's disease and autoimmune diseases, and you could just see it coming. You just have to be intelligent to know that this was not sustainable. So we're being forced into this vertical access, which none of us saw coming except for a few of us. Yeah. And I was hoping it was going to be a more gradual shift, but it's like, no. The universe is basically saying you need to connect with the earth, with your family, with what is grounded and practical, and no more just living on your cell phone. Now what's interesting, Ivy, you know how everyone was on their cell phones, and now
Right.
it's almost going to be boring. All you want to do is get out and be in nature. You want to go to the beach. You want to, it's actually going to make us realize that that was not sustainable. You can't, as humans, continue to just be connected to technology. That's not the answer. That's the horizontal framework. So we have so many exciting things that are happening right now, but always these transitions are super painful. And, I didn't like any of my transitions. They were very scary.
Yeah, transitions aren't necessarily fun by any means. to say it, a little blasé there, but they really, as you come to the other side of it, and as you, one thing I'm sharing with every person I know, please, the more grounded and clear you are, the better you have the opportunity to connect to those little whispers that you're referring to. We, as a family, we're connecting through more video chats. I'm seeing a ton of family and friends doing things that across the country that are all video and truly staying connected. I know every day that I am outside for at least a period of time, taking a walk, doing something, just breathing.
Yeah, it's interesting, how many people are doing puzzles. It's fascinating to me. That's an old-fashioned thing I used to do with my grandmother, and I love puzzles. It's fun. Just, they're simple. This is the getting back to what makes us human. And we had lost some of our humanity through all of our busyness. And this has forced us to recalibrate and restart. But the scary thing, I think, for most people is a financial worry. All right, great, this is wonderful, listen to the whispers, but I have to feed my family. And when you're really, really freaked out, you cannot hear that little inner voice. So what I tell people when they get like that, because I know what that feels like, is even if you can just for 5 minutes a day, literally just 5 minutes, just say, I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to do. I am absolutely terrified. But I am going to believe that somehow or other there's always a way out, and I'm going to sit and wait until something comes to me and helps me shift. And it could just be a phone call, like how I met you, Ivy. A mutual friend of ours in California just said, I think you need to meet Ivy. And it just happened you were in Florida at the time, which is kind of weird. But I could have easily ignored that friend, but it was a little sign from the universe to follow that little path. And then when you connect in with other people who can help you, it's just then more things can start happening. And it's when you stay shut down, closed off, and you have to think that every single person could have something for you, literally every single person.
I love that, because as I'm hearing you speak, I'm seeing little gift boxes, just beautifully wrapped, because I know you and I've seen your art and I've seen your stuff. So the second I hear that, I see, oh my God, these perfect little gift boxes and beautiful wrapping paper and bows. And every person that we connect with is a gift. And we don't know what's going to be opened. It's all a surprise. And some might be, a marble, and some might be, a piece of, the golden charm, and some might be the fake kitty ring. And it's all good, but we don't know unless we're actually connecting with people and being willing to connect and touch that gift.
Right. And so here's another suggestion I have for everyone is, and I tell this to young people all the time, if you read an article or you read a book and it moves you, write to them. You wouldn't believe how much my life has changed because of writing fan letters. Seriously.
Really, share more about that. So if we read a book, write to the author if it's moved us. If we read an article, write to the person who wrote the article.
Yeah, or I just read an article in the New Yorker about all these extreme sport rock climbing people, and there's this guy who's their guru who works for North Face, who seems like a super interesting guy, and he's on my list to write to. I just want to commend him for the work he's doing, and it moved me. And why not? but here's the trick. You can't write to these people expecting a result. This is one of the most dangerous things people do, and it will backfire on you. Same thing with my being an astrologer. When I do a reading for somebody, or when I did my TED Talk, my intention before I walk out on the stage or before I do anything is that I want nothing from you. I'm here to be of service, and I'm here to thank you or to give you something. When you do that and you really mean it, then it's like the standing ovation comes, because people can feel your intention and they can smell it on you, that I don't want anything from you. I have a great story to tell you about that. When I was once teaching at Rancho La Puerta early on, the Quest for Inspiration class on creative thinking, this guy was in the class and he said, Lesley, you're amazing. I could see you could have a huge following. I want to help you. I want to be your business manager. And I was like so excited because he was going to pay me a salary for the year. It would take away a lot of financial pressure. And I sat down with him and he told me all the things I was doing wrong. You don't have a mailing list. You should be doing mass market emails. You should be finding out what your audience wants. And in my head, I'm thinking, he's 100% right. I'm not really good at that kind of stuff. So I need to get better in order to be a better business person. The next time I taught at Rancho La Puerta, following all of his methods, I taught the exact same class I had taught before, but my intention was completely different. I wanted something from people. I wanted them to give me something. And I fell flat on my face. And it was an energetic thing. I was different. I wasn't the same person. And I had to call that guy up and give him his money back and say, I can't do this. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I always use Jesus as an example. I'm not an overly religious person, but I think he's a cool dude. But think about Jesus if he had a marketing team. You know, it's like crazy. No, he just was himself. If he had a marketing team, it would have been kind of scuzzy and not very appealing. You have to live, every one of us has to live our lives in every moment. How can I be of service? Who has a message for me? Who has a gift for me? What can I do to make the world better? When you follow your passion, then you're making the world a better place because you're actually doing what you were designed for. So let's say it's knitting, and someone says, well, you can't make a living knitting. Well, guess what? There are people who do. And if you really love it, you can figure it out. I know a friend of mine who's doing some Norwegian knitting school online, and that guy's doing really well as a teacher of knitters.
It's fascinating, and it's so interesting because we so often forget to stay connected to who we are and what's important to us. You know, I'll always say the success of Slater's success as a company is the culmination of bringing the creative side of Ivy and the business brain of Ivy together. And that was, you know, that's always, as I've grown older, God bless this, you know, as I've grown older and older and older, I have embraced more and more of my creative side from my early years as a dancer. And the more I embrace it, and the more I see that creativity is part of me and part of my soul, as you reference, and I bring that into the business realm, the happier I am and the more my business flourishes.
Right.
And there's no surprise there. So what can people be doing more of? What can we be doing more for ourselves right now and to help the universe? Help ourselves first and then help the universe.
And that's where astrology comes in, because an astrologer can say, you are completely designed to do this. So it's never a surprise, of course, when a good astrologer tells you, because like, wow, I always knew that when I was a kid, but I kind of lost my way. Many of us have lost our way because we had to make a living, because we had a lot of pressure to go into a certain route. Like my dad, he always wanted to be a dancer or an actor, and he ended up working for the telephone company, and he was miserable his entire life. And I'm sure that's one reason why I chose my life, because I watched my father suffer for not doing what he loved. Because back then, in like the 40s and 50s, he didn't really feel like he had a choice. But I feel in this world, we're kind of lucky that there's room to be entrepreneurial, and there's room to work for companies that are different and maybe more creative, and there's always a way, and so not everyone's super creative. Some people are excellent at counseling others or being of service. We still need people to ride buses or drive buses or be delivery men. Some people love that because they're free all day and they're out doing their thing and they don't have a lot of mental stress on them. So everyone's good at something, and the trick, though, is to figure out, I always tell people, tell me what you want it to be when you were a little kid. What was your dream? If it was an astronaut or a nun or a panda bear trainer, whatever it was, the qualities of what you dreamed of becoming, that quality is what you need in your life. So for me, started off this conversation saying I wanted to be either a vet or a game warden in Africa. So the solution for me is always about nature and animals. And most of my entire life, everything I do has something to do with animals. And so as long as I've got that in my life, I'm good.
And
does that make sense?
Absolutely. So how can others kind of help stay a little bit more connected? Because, you know, right now it's interesting because the world was moving at a mile a minute. Everybody was running through life. And now all of a sudden we have this little bit of a pause, slow down, an opportunity to stay more connected to ourselves and to our worlds. Any, tips or how do we do that?
Well, the number one thing right now is nature. So getting outside. I mean, I know a lot of people are locked up in their house, but everyone is allowed to go outside. And I think it's really important to get near trees and look at the sky, which now people can see brighter than ever. It's very hard when you're kind of in that freak out mode to calm yourself down, but nature, actually, I've been told nature loves all that nervous, anxious energy. They eat it up. It's like good for the trees and the plants. So give it to them. They'll soak it up and take it. Because we are electromagnetic beings. People forget that. We are no different than turtles and dolphins and butterflies that follow along grid systems, and these grid systems are connected to those planets. They've actually done studies about how the planet Jupiter, you can actually feel the effects of those rays down here on the Earth. And what's happening right now is we're being forced to realize that we are part of a vertical and a horizontal system. We're both, but we can't just do one without the other. And we need to take better care of our planet. Like I get so upset when I see people littering or just throwing stuff out on the curb that could be taken to Goodwill and recycled. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
This is a huge wave that people need to start living their life. And this is a very important statement I'm now going to say for everybody. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you throw out a chair on the sidewalk because you're too lazy to take it to Goodwill, then that tells me everything about who you are. And so right now, stop it. You have to do everything with intention, and that everything you do means something. And this is sort of a weird personal thing for me, but I always think about that expression, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. It's like sometimes, when you're in a airport bathroom and maybe you drop a little piece of toilet paper on the ground or something when you pull it off and you just don't feel like picking it up because I don't want to touch that. And then I think, oh my God, these people who clean these bathrooms are heroes, and how dare you do anything to make their life harder. And right now, the people who are cleaning these COVID-19 hospitals, holy cow, those people are saints. They are to be, we should be just blessing them with gratitude. And this is where we have to wake up. We've taken so many things for granted. We take our taxi drivers, our janitors, all the people who, we glorify celebrities and baseball players. But man, right now, during this pandemic, who would be your best friend in the hospital? The person who's going to clean up your room. And that's what I mean about moving into this more vertical access where we're having more of an awareness that we're connected in ways that we had forgotten. And the more we can live like that, then I believe, because we're in this electromagnetic system, then the miracles and the weird coincidences, the synchronicities can start speeding up and showing us our way, because there's a pathway for everyone. And it could be that we're all going to have jobs that 2 years ago we would have thought, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. In my life, always, every 10 years, I look back and I think, if somebody had told me 10 years ago I would be a corporate speaker, I would have thought, well, what the hell would I talk about? I was writing and illustrating children's books. Then if someone had told me, 10 years before I became an astrologer, I'd be a well-known astrologer teaching astrology in corporations and working with doctors, I'd be like, how the hell would that happen? I mean, this stuff is crazy, but it's because I've been living my life in this way that I'm describing, where I am like a little wild feral being living like a turtle or a butterfly, and I'm following the patterns. And sometimes it's scary because I'm still bombarded every day with my brain that says, you got to figure this out, Lesley, and you're not doing this right, and you should be doing this, this, and this. And whenever I fall into that trap, I fall flat on my face.
Right.
So it's literally about my living from this place of, I'm going to be in service, doing the best I can every day, and following those messages and hanging out with people like you, Ivy, who always inspire me, or others who I have my posse of people that I know I can go to just keep me in alignment. But the most important thing is I wake up every day and I know I'm doing the best I can.
And I think, in something you're saying is every day I wake up, especially right now, and every day I wake up and I'm grateful. I am 100% grateful. I'm grateful that I can breathe the air, that I have a place to shelter that's safe and nice, and I can get outside. So it's the little things, and for me, always be connected to that gratitude piece. And it goes back to what I said earlier on staying centered and grounded there.
Yes, it's like really, really just even 5 minutes. If you can only do 2 minutes, if you can only do 1 minute of gratitude, it helps. And sometimes the other thing you can do to get you through tough times like this, like last night on Netflix, I watched a movie, I think it's called Crip Camp. It's produced by Michelle and Barack Obama, about this camp in upstate New York for all these handicapped and crippled people. And it's a beautiful film, and you watch them all becoming normalized, because in their world, they were all normal together. But then as soon as they got out into the real world, they were all looked at as quote-unquote freaks or quote-unquote sick. And I think right now, all of us are feeling handicapped. We all feel like we can't move. And so there's a lot to be learned from people who have been living that way for a long time. So that's a good movie for people to watch right now, because they're just a metaphor for what we are right now. It's the same, We're trapped. People who are trapped in a wheelchair, they talk about dancing and wanting to kiss people, and how do you do that when you're in a wheelchair? And they were having fun, they were dancing, and it's like keeping your spirit light and know that there's always a way, and this will pass. And what we want to do right now is build up our ammunition so that when we're back to normal, we have a better plan in place for how to reinvent our life and remove anything from our personal life and our work life that no longer serves us. We cannot afford to be pulled down by anything or anybody.
Yeah. So Lesley, how could our listeners learn more about you, be in touch with you, check in with you?
So I have a website, just my name, Lesley McGurk, LesliemcGuirk.com. So you can sign up for my blog. And then I just started a YouTube channel. And what I'm going to be doing is interviewing people who are like my master teachers, people who I call wayfinders, who have suggestions on helping us through these difficult times. And there's so much stuff out there right now, Ivy. I'm gagging on people on Instagram and Facebook who are promoting their coaching or their online classes. I think we're all getting inundated. So
Yes.
I want your listeners to know that the people that I'm interviewing are what I consider the highest of the high level. These are master souls that have helped me. There's a lot of baby food wisdom out there, and it's okay, but I'm hoping to deliver something that's really meaningful, that goes deep into your bones. And then, of course, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. People can find me. They can just Google me, and I'm pretty much everywhere.
And all Leslie's information are in the show notes below. Please remember to leave a comment. Let us know what's the biggest piece of today's interview with Lesley that touched you. You know, we always are looking to take polls, learn from our listeners. It's a community here at Her Success Story and Slater Success, so let us know what's touched you. Of course, also subscribe. We come into your inbox with fresh new content and interviews every Monday morning. Lesley, thank you for your time. I know how busy you are, especially right now, helping people and helping the world shift to a better access.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I hope to talk to you soon, Ivy. Thanks.
See you next time. Thank you for joining us at Slater Success.